Today we are honored to welcome a remarkable voice in the fight for Afghan women's rights, Nilab Ahmadi. Born in Kabul, she has dedicated her life to education, advocacy, and policy shaping change even in the face of adversity. From teaching English to Afghan women as a 10th grader to leading students' initiatives at Kabul University, her journey reflects resilience and determination. Now a public policy graduate student at Duke University, one of the world's leading institutions, she's equipping herself with the tools to influence policy and create lasting change. As Afghanistan faces one of its darkest periods in history, Nilobs stand as a symbol of hope and resistance. Dear Nilob, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Ashmajan, for having me today.
It is a great honor for us to have you in our podcast. But let me start from here that your journey into activism began when you were just a 10th grader standing in front of a classroom teaching Afghan women English. At that time, the country still had hope, you know. Women were pursuing education, working in different sectors, and shaping their futures. I would like to ask that when you think back to that moment now, with Afghan girls being denied the rights to sit in a classroom, how does it make you feel?
Uh, First of all, thank you so much for your question. So I think thinking back to the time when Afghan girls had access to education, I feel a deep sense of loss, anger, and frustration. It is really frustrating to see that an entire generation of young women who once had the hope of shaping their futures through education is now being robbed of that right. Education is more than just learning, it is empowerment, independence, and foundation of progress. So to witness a system that deliberately silences and sidelines young girls, preventing them from realizing their potential is really heartbreaking. It feels like watching the destruction of dreams in real time. Afghan girls were thriving. They were excelling in their studies, becoming doctors, engineers, teachers, and leaders. And now they are being told that they are not worthy of the simplest right, the right to learn. So it also brings a deep sense of betrayal, not just by the forces imposing these restrictions, but by the international community that once promised to stand by Afghan women. The world watched as Afghan girls walked into classrooms full of ambition, yet today those same girls are locked out and the world's outrage has faded. So the word part is that isn't just about like today, it's about the long-term impact by denying Afghan girls education.
Mhm.
An entire country is being pushed back into darkness, setting progress back by decades. It is a cruel reminder that rights that are hard-won can be lost in an instant if the world does not remain vigilant and committed to defending them.
Yeah, but completely agree with what you have said. But people like you, women like you, stands as a symbol of hope for us and for millions of girls inside Afghanistan. But I would like to say, as I have read about your time at Kabul University, you were more than just a student. You were a leader, you know, and empowering the students. Today, the very halls where you once walked are now silent for half of population. No debates, no student gatherings, no woman dreaming of becoming, as you have mentioned, journalists, you know, teachers, doctors. My question is, what does it mean for a country when its universities, once a symbol of progress, become a place of exclusion?
Mhm. I think universities are meant to be centers of learning, innovation, and progress. Currently, and even in the past, when the girls were studying there, they symbolize the intellectual strength of a nation and serve as a foundation for its future. When they become places of exclusion rather than inclusion, it marks the decline of not just academic freedom, but the overall advancement of a society, which we really talk about Afghan society. Afghanistan's universities once held promise. They were spaces where young women and men could pursue knowledge, exchange ideas, and build a future for themselves and their country. When women were allowed to participate, they brought unique perspectives, talents, and solutions to the country's many challenges. But now, with the universities becoming institutions of exclusion, the entire fabric of Afghan society is being weakened. The absence of women in higher education education means the loss of female doctors who could have saved lives, female teachers who could have shaped future generations, female engineers who could have built the country's infrastructure, and female leaders who could have worked toward a better Afghanistan. This exclusion is not just an injustice against women, but it is an act of self-sabotage by the nation itself. So a country that denies education to half of its population cannot progress. It cannot compete globally, and it cannot provide opportunities for its people to thrive. When universities become places of exclusion, it sends a clear message: knowledge is no longer valued and operation is prioritized over progress.
Yep.
Okay, thanks once again for joining to our program. Since August 2021, Afghan women have been systematically erased from public life. They are no longer allowed to attend school, work in most sectors, travel alone, or even step in the parks for fresh air. This isn't just about a policy, it's a solidification of entire generation. When you look at these restrictions, what do you think is the most devastating loss beyond education and jobs? What is being taken from Afghan women on a human level?
I think that's a very good question. I think beyond education and jobs, Afghan women are being stripped of their dignity, autonomy, and identity. And as you mentioned, they are completely erased from their communities. This is not just about burying them from schools or workplaces. It's about erasing them from the public life entirely. On a fundamental level, these restrictions are taking away a woman's ability to dream, to have aspirations, to plan for future that belongs to her. They are unfortunately being told that their existence is only valid within the confines of their homes, that their voices do not matter and their contributions to society are unwanted. The psychological toll of this operation is immense, which really concerned me currently, imagining growing up, knowing you had the potential to become something great, only to have it taken away overnight. The loss of self-worth, the forced dependency, and the feeling of powerlessness create an environment of despair. Women who once saw themselves as active members of society are now made to feel invisible, their presence unwanted, and their existence reduced to mere survival. In addition to that, beyond the personal impact, these restrictions also rob Afghan women of something even more profound: the ability to shape their own legacy. They are being denied the opportunity to leave behind something meaningful for future generations, to inspire their daughter and younger sisters to strive for greatness. And instead, they're forced to witness a future that their voices are silenced and their potential wasted and their existence diminished, which unfortunately means that they are completely being erased from the community that they live.
Exactly, I agree what you have said, dear Nilab. Afghanistan is facing one of the worst economic crises in its story, and women who once contributed to the country's workforce are now locked out of nearly every sectors. Families are struggling to survive, fathers are forced to marry off their daughters, and mothers who once had jobs are now begging on the streets. This isn't just about economics, it's about dignity. What happens to a society when its women who once helped build it are reduced to invisibility?
I believe when women are forced into invisibility, the entire structure of society begins to deteriorate. When women are not just individuals, they are educators, caregivers, entrepreneurs, and leaders. Their presence shapes communities, nurtures families, and drives economic and social progress. A society that suppresses women is a society that suffocates its own potential. Historically, countries that have marginalized women have struggled to develop, while those that have empowered them have flourished. Afghanistan is now on a very risky path where it is not just failing women, it is failing itself. The loss of women's contributions in medicine means more lives will be lost due to the lack of healthcare providers. The absence of women in education means fewer children, both boys and girls, will receive a quality education, which is like happening now in Afghanistan. It's not just about girls, it's also about boys, that they cannot receive a very high quality education. The exclusion of women from the workforce means economic stagnation and deeper poverty. Perhaps the most profound loss is that of social cohesion. When an entire half of the population is treated as a second-class citizens, resentment builds and hope fits. The young girls growing up in this environment will internalize a sense of worthlessness compared to other countries, and the young boys witnessing it will learn that oppression is normal. This creates a cycle of discrimination and division that will take generations to undo. And also, a society cannot thrive when it actively destroys the potential of half of its people. It will only grow weaker, more isolated, and ultimately unsustainable, unfortunately.
Yeah, but as I'm a student of history and politics, I love talking about history. I love talking about policies, about politics. But looking back to history, the world saw the heartbreaking scenes from Kabul airport. I'm sure that everyone remembers it. In August 2021, that the people were clinging to planes, mothers hanging their babies over barbed wires. Families were desperately trying to escape. There was actually a global outrage and a lot of promises of support and discussions about human rights. But now, actually, Afghanistan rarely makes headlines. Those people, like we can say United Nations, European countries that they were once talking about human rights, but now they're silenced. I would like to ask this that do you feel like Afghanistan has been forgotten? And what would you say as a generation of this country? What would you say to those who once said they stood with Afghan women but have now gone silent?
Well, I think I would have different responses for this and different perspectives, but the first sentence and the first word that I would like to start it is yes, Afghanistan has been largely forgotten. When the Taliban first imposed these restrictions, there was global outrage, yeah, but that outrage has since faded. The world moves on, but Afghan women cannot. They are left to endure an unimaginable operation while the international community watches in silence. To those who once claimed to stand with Afghan women, I would say your support is meaningless if it only lasts for the news cycle. Afghan women do not need empty words or simply gestures, they need real action. Where are the protests? This is really a question that everyone is asking. Where are the policies that hold the Taliban accountable? Where is the continued pressure from global leaders? Silence in the face of oppression is complicity. The world promised to stand with Afghan women, and now, when they need that support the most, many have chosen convenience over commitment. This is not just a failure of diplomacy; it's a failure of humanity. That's, I think, my first perspective.
Yeah.
The first thing that I am like thinking about all the time, I think there are many and a lot of things going on in this world, like from conflicts around Russia or Ukraine, conflicts between Israel or Palestine, and also the emerge of AI. A lot of things just made the world busy, and sometimes I feel like the world is also tired of like saying repeated things over and over again. And also, I can see that Afghanistan and the people, especially the women who are banned from their very fundamental rights, they are just tired of saying and repeating. They need action. I don't say that we should start from very big action, from a very big movement, but I would say that let's work on the structures and policies, starting from Afghanistan to international community, to United Nations, to European countries, like the annual meetings that we have globally and we discuss about Afghanistan, we all the time repeat the challenges and everything, but we just need actions. I think there were a lot of advocacies being around that, but the problem is that there are very less actions going around. We need actions, we need policies to address the challenges Afghan community face, from political to social to cultural and to economic, and also to hold the Taliban accountable for some of the policies that we will develop or we will design. And first, the first thing I expect is just from our leaders or the activists that they are working for the Afghan community. They should just start from somewhere and end this tragedy in Afghanistan.
Yeah, but as you're right now living in the United States of America, studying your master's degree in public policy at Duke University, actually learning how system works, how policies are shaped, or we can say how nations are built. I would like to ask that if you could sit across from world leaders today, someone with a power, with a great power to make a difference, maybe Donald J. Trump, but not Putin. because he's not interested to do some business in Afghanistan. What would you tell them about Afghan women, and what should they be going that they are not?
Yeah, I think I would tell them that Afghan women are not victims, they're fighters, they're resisting in every way they can, whether through underground schools, online education, or acts of defense. But they cannot win this fight alone. The world must do more than watch. It must act. So as a policy person, that I am focusing on policies and actions more compared to like words or sayings. I think we should first start from ourselves, like our communities, as I mentioned before, like activists, the people who are like going around in the world, even the previous leaders. I see some of them in social media that they are just advocating a lot for Afghan women, especially. We should come together, we should be united and develop some kind of policies addressing Afghan women's problems, like youth problems, in very international platforms, like for example, CSW 69, which is like held annually in the United Nations in the US. It's a really good opportunity if we next year we go there with some kind of like policies, not just with the words written in the papers and reading them through, with some kind of policies to address them for the global communities. For example, as a policy person, I am currently working on some kind of policies based on research, based on evidence-based research that I see inside Afghanistan and outside that, and talking to different people. I feel like considering the fact that currently we have a lot of problems with the women, there should be some kind of like actions. For example, imposing a stronger diplomatic and economic pressure on the Taliban to reverse these restrictions. Like the Taliban are just doing their actions and whatever they want, especially on women, but no one is there to hold them accountable. We should have some kind of policies or structures to put pressure on them to just not do those actions that they want to do. Also support underground and online education initiatives, which I can see a lot of activities around like online education, things like that, but we should make them more because we don't know how long the Taliban will be there and how long those girls are banned from accessing to education. Providing safe asylum pathways.
Yeah, Afghanistan's crisis often discussed in political and humanitarian terms, but there's another side: art, literature, and music, which have long been part of the country's soul. Yet, with increasing restrictions, even self-expression is being silenced. As someone who has seen both the beauty and struggle of Afghanistan, how important do you think culture and storytelling are in preserving the spirit of a nation under the oppression?
Well, I think at this moment and considering the current situation, storytelling and sharing the situation and challenges that are happening in Afghanistan is a must and is very important. And it plays a very critical role in terms of like raising awareness, especially for international community, by Afghans who are living outside the country because they have a safe space. And I believe in the power of advocacy, and I believe that this would help a lot of Afghans who are residing inside Afghanistan, especially women and girls and youth as a whole, that they're banned from accessing to education, or they don't have access to quality education, or they don't have access to universities, to a good job market. Most of them are unemployed. So I feel like storytelling is very important in terms of like sharing all those tragedies that are happening in our country, and to be kind of like connected with international leaders and asking them for support that we need, starting from education to providing jobs or creation of jobs. I think that's really important, and that's what I'm currently involved in. Like whenever I face with some of my international friends and I go to any international events, I start talking about situation in Afghanistan, especially about Afghan women and about Afghan girls. And I see that those friends, like international friends, they show support and they are so interested to hear and to listen to what we are saying. So I truly believe in the power of storytelling and in the power of sharing stories.
Once again, dear Nilab,
Completely true words.
yes, you can go.
Okay, completely true words. Thank you for joining us in the program, Miss Nilab Ahmadi. We had an exceptional episode today. Once again, thank you for being part of this program.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
But at the end, I would like to add this, dear Nilab, a special thanks for joining us. But if there is anything that we have missed, Mike is here so you can tell to our audience.
I think we have covered everything. Thank you so much for having me, for inviting me, and for giving me the opportunity to once again talk about problems that Afghan women face and about the education, access to education. I really appreciate your time and your energy.
Thank you once again.